Welcome everyone, my name is Rob and today I bring you another episode of Assassin's Creed The Real History, the series where we compare the representations of characters and other elements depicted within one of the Assassin's Creed games to their actual history. Please be warned of major story spoilers ahead. For today's episode we will be exploring the history of one of the founding fathers of the United States, Benjamin Franklin. To start, we will explore his early life during the pregame history, then we will cover his life in Assassin's Creed 3 and Rogue during the in-game history, and lastly we will summarize the differences between his actual life and his portrayal in the game. Starting with the pregame history, Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston, Massachusetts on January 17, 1706 to Josiah Franklin and Abiah Folger. In his youth, he attended school for only 2 years, and thereafter continued his education by reading a wide variety of books. He stopped his schooling at the age of 10, and when he was 12, he worked as an apprentice printer for his brother James. As he was not allowed to write letters to be published in his brother's paper, he adopted the fake identity of Mrs. Silence Dogood, a middle-aged woman who wrote and had her letters published in the newspaper, some of which demonstrated Benjamin's strong stance on freedom of speech. He eventually became a fugitive when he fled the city, as he no longer wanted to continue his apprenticeship with his brother. He ran away to Philadelphia when he was 17. Here he worked as a printer and eventually moved to London where he was employed as a typesetter, later returning to Philadelphia with the help of a merchant named Thomas Denham, who hired him both as a shopkeeper and bookkeeper. When he was 21, Franklin created a group of artisans and tradesmen who wished to improve their skills and help the community, naming themselves the Junto. Together, they created a subscription-based library named the Library Company of Philadelphia, which pooled together their money to purchase expensive books which could be accessed with a membership fee by the community. After his employer died, Franklin returned to printing and, in 1728, partnered with Hugh Meredith to publish a newspaper called the Pennsylvania Gazette. It rapidly became a tool for Franklin to vocalize his beliefs and suggest societal changes, for which he came to be respected by his readers as an intelligent and industrious individual. Over the years, Franklin would further use the newspaper to advertise books, provide satirical interpretations on contemporary events, and create an impartial political environment which always encouraged others to debate and challenge authority. In 1730, Benjamin Franklin entered a common-law marriage with Deborah Reed, who had already been married but abandoned by her husband. They took in Franklin's recently accepted illegitimate son, William Franklin, whom he had had with an unknown woman out of wedlock. Eventually, the couple would have 2 children together. In 1733, Franklin started publishing Poor Richard's Almanac, which included weather forecasts, puzzles, and wordplay. The modern quote, "A penny saved is a penny earned," is actually misquoted from the almanac, which originally read, "A penny saved is a 2 pence dear." Despite writing these under another pseudonym, this time as Richard Saunders, it was well recognized that Franklin was the author, and for these publications his reputation grew exponentially. In the following years, Benjamin Franklin participated in more community projects, including civil projects to help the city of Philadelphia, the establishment of the Philadelphia Union Fire Company, and the establishment of the Philadelphia Contribution for Insurance Against Loss by Fire, thus participating in the creation of 2 organizations that would both help in preventing extensive fire damage to property and helping the victims recover financially. In 1737, Franklin was made postmaster of Philadelphia due to his heavy contributions to the printing industry, which was a position he would hold for nearly 2 decades. In the late 1740s, after nearly 20 years in the printing business, Benjamin Franklin decided to retire and pursue other interests, predominantly in the fields of science and politics. Following this decision, some of his inventions included the swimming fins, the lightning rod, bifocal glasses, and the Franklin stove, which was used to heat homes. By the 1750s, Franklin had begun his studies in electricity, which led to his eventual discoveries concerning the nature of lightning and electricity. Franklin is noted historically for never patenting his inventions, as he believed it was an inventor's duty to share his creations that could benefit the community freely. Around this time, he also became even further involved in politics, even receiving honorary degrees for his work from both Harvard and Yale. It would be at this point where we first met Benjamin Franklin in Assassin's Creed Rogue, when he was delivering his speech in front of Shea and William Johnson in Albany. Historically, in 1754, while at the Albany Congress, it is said Franklin proposed the idea for uniting the colonies, as he shared his Join or Die cartoon, which, although it was evidently not adopted, did influence the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. Soon after, we met Benjamin Franklin once again while in Boston during Assassin's Creed 3, when Hatham first arrived in North America. By 1757, Franklin traveled to England representing Pennsylvania in terms of the recent debates brought up concerning the colony's political ownership. In 1765, following the mass oppositions to the Stamp Act, Benjamin Franklin was one of the politicians who participated in convincing Parliament to repeal the law, which inadvertently made him the central spokesperson for American interests in England. This led to his later opposition to the levying of additional taxes on colonists to support British interests in the French and Indian War. For most of these years, Franklin tried to find a peaceful solution to the growing issues between Britain and the colonies. However, when letters indicating that the rights of Bostonians would be diminished by the crown came into his possession, he sent them to his allies in the colonies, which escalated tensions. For this, Franklin was singled out as a troublemaker and was publicly humiliated in front of the Privy Council for his actions in 1774. For this reason, Franklin returned to Philadelphia in 1775, having decided that the time of accommodating both sides' interests had passed. Once back in North America, he lobbied for the independence of the colonies. This would cause an eventual division between he and his son William, who would remain an adamant loyalist. For his actions, Franklin was elected to the Second Continental Congress and was a participant in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence. He was also made the first United States Postmaster General due to his years of experience in the field. Despite Thomas Jefferson being one of the primary writers for the Declaration, Franklin was a heavy contributor in its content. He was a signing member of the Declaration of Independence, and soon after he sailed to France under the role of ambassador to the court of Louis XVI. The scene of his signing was also depicted in Assassin's Creed 3 as Connor watched his allies officially pledge to their independence. The time of his arrival in France and the point at which his negotiations would begin were also demonstrated in Assassin's Creed Rogue, when Shay used his previous relationship with Franklin as a way of getting access to the Palace of Versailles where his target, Charles Dorian, was located. Historically, despite not being the singular reason, Franklin's negotiations and reputation aided in solidifying French support for the Patriots' cause when they signed the Treaty of Alliance in 1778. While abroad, he also worked with a few notable individuals, such as Honoré Gabriel Riquetti, Comte de Mirabeau. After the war concluded, Benjamin Franklin was also present at the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which ended the American Revolution. In his older age, Franklin lived in America and was elected president of the Executive Council of Pennsylvania and delegate to the Constitutional Convention. Franklin was also recognized as the only founding father to have signed the 4 major documents related to the founding of the United States, which were the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Alliance with France, the Treaty of Paris, and the United States Constitution. Later, he even participated in the writing of anti-slavery treaties in 1789, having already lobbied for the abolition of slavery ever since he had freed his own slaves. Benjamin Franklin eventually died on April 17, 1790 at the age of 84 from a pleuritic attack. In summary, Benjamin Franklin's appearances in both AC Rogue and AC3 were rather interestingly done as they intersect, showing his participation in both the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. Although much of Franklin's representations in the game were rather accurate, there were a few minor differences. Firstly, after delivering his speech in Albany, there is no record of Benjamin Franklin working with the artifacts brought to him by Shay and the Assassins, and his invention of the lightning rod was not used to facilitate any such fictional experiments. Secondly, although he may have been in the area at the time, Benjamin Franklin would not have been assisted by the fictional Hatham Kenway while in Boston to have the lost pages of his almanac retrieved. Thirdly, while in Paris negotiating the idea of an alliance between the Patriots and the French, Franklin was not saved by the then Templar Shay Cormac, who would subsequently use him as a way to gain access to the Palace of Versailles. Lastly, and I believe this one should go without saying, every event related to the tyranny of King Washington DLC was fictional, as this depicted an alternative timeline showcasing the what-if concept when considering the consequences that would take place if Washington had made himself King of the United States after the American Revolution. Aside from these rather clear differences between history and the in-game depiction, Franklin's story was well showcased across these 2 Assassin's Creed games, as the writers truly highlighted both his inventive side and his strong role in politics. Although only a small amount of his history was covered, much as is the case with this video, I believe it gave a fair representation of his beliefs, attitudes, and even some of his inventions. To finish this episode, I'd like to say that as Benjamin Franklin is considered a very unique and inspiring individual, I just wanted to take a moment to dedicate this video to my grandfather, who passed away last month and always served as a wonderful source of both inspiration and support in my life. I cannot thank him enough for the role he played in our family, and although he will be missed dearly, he will never be forgotten. Thank you all for your time.